According to Brian Windhorst, the Phoenix Suns will trade Kevin Durant this offseason. We'll talk a little bit about that. Plus, the New York Knicks are getting a return big man in Rich Robinson set to make his return to the basketball court. How much does that change the outlook for the New York Knicks in the playoffs? And apparently, Joel Embiid's trade value is at 0, but the New York Knicks almost gave up all their first-round picks to trade for Joel Embiid. We're talking about it all and more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. I'm the host, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. I want to start off with these comments from Brian Windhorst and when he said this. They're going to trade him, and he knows that. I think everybody's intentions are crystal clear here. That's what Brian Windhorst said on Get Up just yesterday. And while this is not too surprising, right? I think if you're reading the tea leaves, even at this year's trade deadline, with the Phoenix Suns shopping Kevin Durant and then turning around and Kevin Durant, the reason that he didn't want to be traded isn't because he was against being traded, not even to Golden State, it's because he didn't want to move in the offseason. I think that was very telling when it came down to it. And so when you look at this now, the fact that Kevin Durant is more than likely on his move, right? You have to look at what this meant for the Phoenix Suns, right? When Kevin Durant originally went to the Phoenix Suns, a lot of people hoped or thought that this could be the making of another super team, right? And unfortunately, that just did not come to fruition. Kevin Durant is now part of 2 failed super teams, but it's not all on Kevin Durant, right? I'm not going to put that and look at Kevin Durant like, yes, he has a place in it. Everybody has a place in it. When you're a player on a team, especially a star like Kevin Durant, and it doesn't happen, your team doesn't have the success that you wanted it to have, you're a part of the reason for that, right? But then when you look at it, since Kevin Durant in his 3 seasons with the Phoenix Suns, outside of the 8 games he played in his first year there, it is what it is, right? When he was moved there. But outside of that, like, Kevin Durant has been relatively healthy. 75 games played last season, 45 games played so far this season, not as nearly as healthy as last season. He's probably going to play about 70, close to 70 games this season. But overall, like, it just did not work out. And I think the Phoenix Suns, when you look at this, and of course, we'll do a retrospective of this once he's officially traded. But if you're really looking at Kevin Durant and the Phoenix Suns and this whole tenure here, it's just a sign of why, as a front office, it's up to you to really be sure of what you're building here with the team. It's up to you. Like, and again, like I said, I put some of the blame on the players for not being able to win enough and do those type of things. And when you disappoint at the level that they disappointed to, it's always going to be some thought process you look at and say, what the hell is really going on here? But the Phoenix Suns front office, the management, ownership, however you want to look at it, they put themselves in a bind, right? They continually put more money on the books while not really improving the team. You made a move for Bradley Beal, and everybody was wondering what's going to happen with point guard. You then tried to convince yourself and others that Bradley Beal was going to be able to play point guard for you. That never materialized into anything. And you continue to saw this whole situation just blow up, and balloon more and more to you into where now you have one of the highest salary caps in a $219 million roster. And you're not even going to make the play-in, right? $152 million luxury tax bill that the other teams that do not pay the luxury tax are going to be able to split, and you're not even going to sniff the playoffs. That's what you've built here, right? And of course, it happened slowly over time. There was initially with Ayton and Booker and those guys on the court, there was some initial promise. You decided to move on, from DeAndre Ayton, and that's perfectly fine. But let this be a lesson, right? And I think the biggest lesson that could be learned from this, and I said this over on Locked On NBA as well, the biggest lesson that should be learned from this is that the manufactured super team era is done. Now, I thought that the Brooklyn Nets era was really going to signify that for a lot of people, but it's done. You're not going to get that anymore. Trying to manufacture a super team, it's so restrictive now with the salary cap that it's very hard, right? And so now hearing that the Phoenix Suns have come to the realization that, no, we're going to need to move off from Kevin Durant this offseason. Well, hell, welcome to the party, y'all. We're glad that you finally showed up and that you're aware of what's going on here. And Kevin Durant now is going to move on to another team. That brings about the next question. Where is the future of Kevin Durant going to be, right? And some people will say, well, anybody trading for at that point, next year, before the start of the season, he'll turn 37. What team is going to trade for a 37-year-old Kevin Durant, right? And when you look at Kevin Durant's salary as well, $54 million next year, and then he goes into unrestricted free agency the year before that. What team is going to trade for that? And I think there are a couple of teams that it does make some sense for. I still think the Golden State Warriors could be in on it, depending on how some things shake out in the offseason. I think they could still be open to acquiring Kevin Durant back to their team. I look at a team like, as well as the Dallas Mavericks, especially with what they're trying to recoup, that they could be willing to take. Again, Nico Harrison is Nico Harrison on top of all of that. So, anything that could remotely, even if you do look at it as stupid to trade to Kevin Durant, it's Nico Harrison. He could be willing to do so, right? You would have to combine quite a bit of salaries to get that done. Maybe even, that means moving Clay, combining Clay with PJ, and a bunch of players basically to get that done. But I could see a world in which the Dallas Mavericks may be in on it. I think another team to look out for that is needing that scoring star to kind of solidify what they're trying to do there. Look out for the Houston Rockets, right? Their head coach has said many times that, or has been alluded to many times, that he does want a superstar there in Ime Udoka. He wants another superstar, wants a superstar, and they do need a scoring threat. You let the Houston Rockets get a top-tier scorer, which, of course, there's still people that question if Kevin Durant can be that. Watch out. Right now, the question that you have to ask there is, how are you going to get that done? It would probably mean moving on from Jalen Green, who I think that Jalen Green, personally, is one of the most overrated go-to scorers in the league, if you even call him that. The majority of his buckets are assisted. Over 50% of Jalen Green's buckets are assisted. Now, if you're looking at that and you're supposed to be some top-tier scorer, that's a story for another day. I'm getting sidetracked, right? But they could put together a situation that makes enough sense for them. You also look at their under the first tax apron again next year. They're $15 million under the second tax apron as well. Now, they're not going to be able to stay that if they trade for Kevin Durant, but I can see a world in which some of these teams trade for Kevin Durant. It's going to take a lot to get it done, but we'll see what the future holds, right? And that's going to be the storyline of this offseason. Who makes the move for Kevin Durant? Let me know what you guys think on that down below. Who makes that move for Kevin Durant? Where does he make the most sense at? What do you think about how the Phoenix Suns experiment did not work and how it ended up shaking out? Let me know your thoughts on all that down below. Next up, I want to talk about Mitchell Robinson potentially making his return. Well, not potentially. He's either going to make his return Friday or Sunday for the New York Knicks. This one came out from Sham saying this. New York's Mitchell Robinson has been upgraded to questionable to play and will make his Knicks season debut as early as Friday against the Memphis Grizzlies. And Robinson plans to return during the team's trip in Memphis and Miami on Sunday. Now, Mitchell Robinson has been recovering for 5 months from an ankle injury, right? And what Mitchell Robinson has to do when he comes back is just come in and be himself. You look at how good Mitchell Robinson has been at times defensively for that New York Knicks team, and that's exactly what he's coming in here to do, right? He's a really good shot blocker, right, which is really good. You also look at outside of that, his switchability and things like that. And Mitchell Robinson could pair next to Karl-Anthony Towns if they can get him back, in complete rhythm by then. He helps a lot for that, right? The New York Knicks right now, 38-20 overall. They have 24 games left on the season, so you got a little bit of games to get him back in as much rhythm as you can before the playoffs. The Knicks have won 6 out of their last 10 games as well, right? So you're looking at that. So if you compare Mitchell Robinson, especially with how the New York Knicks sometimes have not been what I'm sure Tom Thibodeau wants them to be defensively, this is something that you have to look out for and say, all right, Knicks, what can you get out of this? Now, I don't want to put a whole lot on Mitchell Robinson returning, but he's returning to a team in the New York Knicks that, despite being third in offensive rating in the league, are 20th in defensive rating. 20th. Over the last 5 games, they've been 26th in defensive rating, and in the last 10, 29th. So this is a team that needs help on the defensive side of the ball. Now, we know what they plan to do out on the perimeter. They want to switch a lot with OG Anunoby, Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges. They want to be able to switch a lot, right? And we'll see if they're going to be able to do that and how Mitchell Robinson can help with that. The question is just How does he look when he gets back, and how well can he play over a sustained amount of time, and can he avoid further injury as well? So look out for that for the New York Knicks. I like the fact that Mitchell Robinson's coming back because I think this Eastern Conference playoffs, despite how down everybody is, rightfully so, on the Eastern Conference, I think these Eastern Conference playoffs can be really, really exciting depending on how the matchups shake out and, of course, who comes out that play-in. But let me know what you guys think on that down below as well. But with that said, we go from one Eastern Conference big man in Mitchell Robinson to another, and Shams Charania came out and said this about Joel Embiid, says this: his status for the rest of the season, certainly for the next few games, is very much in question and up in air. Embiid received a new imaging on Monday, I'm told, and everything really is on the table. Where the 76ers season is, where it's been, and well, Joel Embiid specifically has been off the eye test. The way he looks this season, playing through, from what I'm told, regular, frequent injections in his left knee, this is something that the 76ers have to make sure they huddle with Embiid, make the best smart decision for him moving forward, because as it stands right now, Joel Embiid just cannot carry on the way that it is. It's unfortunate what's happened with Joel Embiid, an MVP, somebody who's played really well at times in this league. And it's always been said that a 50% Joel Embiid is better than no Joel Embiid. And this is really the first season where that just is not true at all. Joel Embiid does not have the same get up. He's not rotating the same way. Nothing when it comes down to it. And overall now, even if you look, and I've been one that said, I've had 2 videos talking about why it's time for the Philadelphia 76ers to move on from Joel Embiid. But realistically looking at it, that's just not going to happen, right? And it's unfortunate because had they made the decision earlier, maybe they could have. And it came out today per Jake L. Fisher, who said this: once upon a time, Philly presumably could have extracted every draft pick that New York possessed before it splurged on trades for Mikal Bridges and Karl Anthony Towns. Knicks were always the rival threat, sources said, and that the 76ers officials knew was waiting to pounce if Embiid ever reached the trade market. And now, unfortunately, that's not there, right? And it doesn't seem like there's going to be any fix for Joel Embiid other than going under the knife. And honestly, this is my personal opinion. This is not reporting. What the hell is he waiting on, right? I get it. Your team's there. Your team's not you're not going to make the playoffs. I get it. You're only technically 2.5 games back of the 10th seed to make the play-in. But with the way that Joel has been playing with that knee, it's just not going to happen. This is a team that I know that they had how I was excited about the Philadelphia 76ers roster coming into this year, but it's just not there for them, right? And so because of it, I think that surgery is probably the best case. And I know there's been talk of him getting a meniscus replacement similar to what Lonzo Ball got, where they use a cadaver meniscus to go into that knee. And I get it. Joel Embiid is a lot heavier than what Lonzo Ball is. So every surgery isn't one for one. But if you look at Lonzo, despite him not shooting the ball well, he's regained almost all the mobility that he's had. Even if Joel Embiid has that surgery and is able to gain 65 to 70% of the mobility, that's still, and be pain-free, which Lonzo said that he is, that's still better than nothing. Now, it would mean that he's probably going to lose a year of his career in the surgery and rehab that carries about a 12 to 15-month timeline before you can return. But that's a better long-term prognosis for Joel Embiid's career than to keep trying to fight through this and return. And eventually you're only staving it off so long, it seems like. Again, I'm not a medical doctor. I don't have the medicals. Even if I did have the medicals, I wouldn't know what the fuck I'm looking at. But you still have to ask yourself, what is the best decision for Joel Embiid for his prolonged future? Of course, you got people asking and questioning, is retirement on the table? Should it be on the table for Joel Embiid? And not to say that that's not a fair question to ask, but it all comes down to Joel and what he feels that he can get out of getting the surgery. And I guess we'll see what the future holds there. But as far as the Philadelphia 76ers, my stance on them remains the same. It's time for them to move on from Joel Embiid. I just don't think there's another way around that, personally. But you guys can let me know how you feel, as always, down below. Make sure you guys are following the show at NBA Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBA Central Show at gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and or voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the #1 spot for everything basketball related, but that's thanks to you lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, see you guys the next time I feel like making a video, probably tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.